Hi everyone, Tawanda here. Have you asked yourself what a podcast is? Maybe let me ask it this way. Do you know what a podcast is? And my maybe I should help you answer that question. So my research has shown me that a podcast is basically an audio file that is made available on the internet and is available to subscribers to a particular channel that uploads that audio file. It's usually available in a series, or maybe it could just be one single file. The file itself contains information that is relevant to a particular subject or series of subjects. Users can actually download those files onto their computer or onto their phone, and they'll be able to listen to those pieces of information as and when is convenient for them. So there's an inherent power, in the podcast, because then it becomes available when you want it. For instance, if you've got information being communicated on the radio, but people are not listening to the radio at the time, then they won't listen to it. But if they can then know that that information is made available on some platform somewhere, and they're able to get access to it as and when they find it convenient for them, then they'll be able to get that information. But if it was on radio, once that piece of information airs, then it's gone. You can't play it again unless you get another slot to play it. So there's an inherent power in podcasts that I think every single business should be able to harness and to take advantage of. So let's get into it. If you have something to talk about, and I think everybody has something to talk about in your business, whether it's your story, whether it's the products that you sell and how they help people's lives, everybody's got something to say about the business that they're in and the products that they're selling. So, why is it important for businesses today, for every single business, and I think it's every single business, to have a podcast going today? First of all, I think that you could use your podcast to generate what I call leverage, where you position yourself as a subject matter expert, and then people begin to tap into that base of knowledge that you possess. And then at that point, they will come to you for information, they will come to you for advice. And maybe you are running a podcast, or you want to start running a podcast that will invite different guests. By inviting them onto your podcast, what you're basically doing is roping them in into a product and giving them opportunity to share their stories, share their product information and all of that, which in turn then creates a symbiotic relationship. And in that case, it also creates an opportunity and access to those individuals for your business, because then the conversation can go from there, and you can make conversations, agreements, and basically broker deals that will be to the advantage of your business. Secondly, which is very related to point number one, I think that a podcast will create the opportunity for you to generate leads, not just through the guests that will be coming onto your podcast, but also people that get to listen to your podcast. Remember these, if you play your cards right, then you have your podcast available on several different platforms, and people can listen to them, whether it's a visual one on YouTube, whether it's audio on all these different podcast directories, like Spotify, like Google Podcast, like Podbean, whatever the case, where people feel convenient and feel comfortable listening to your content. So when they listen to your content, somebody's going to get interested in what you're talking about, and then you can, from there, generate a lead and chase that lead down until you're able to close it. The third reason I think that companies and businesses should start podcasts, especially in Zambia, is to build trust. Now, I believe that trust is built by sharing information. In relationships, we share information about ourselves that make the other person feel closer to us, because they feel we're being vulnerable with them and we're sharing information. Similarly, in business, if you're sharing information about how your clients or potential clients' lives can be improved, whether it's through your using your product or another product, or it's just advice on how to tackle certain prickly subjects, then you're basically generating and building trust in those people's lives. And when you build trust, it becomes easier for you then to sell to those individuals. Now, if you, for instance, have already sold something to somebody, but they're trying to figure out how to use that, one way you can use your podcast is to share information that gives customers a bit more information about how they can use the product that they're currently enjoying from you as a service provider or product seller. They are then able to figure out how to use it by the information that you're giving them. So you could literally manage your customer journey using a podcast by going through a series of lessons on how customers that have recently taken up your product can then use that product and take advantage of all its features and all the benefits that might come with it. Second, rather lastly, and that's really a bonus point, number 5, which I think is more applicable to internal communication within a business. If you are trying to influence culture in your business, you could put down a series of podcasts that speak to every single facet of the culture that you're trying to embed in your business. So this now becomes internal communication. This is a podcast that is not available to the public, but is really available to your teams, and they can listen to that podcast or that series of podcasts to then get information around the culture that you're trying to create in the organization. It could be investor relations, it could be disciplinary things, it could be personal health and mental health, which is now a big conversation point. It could be any of those things, anything you want to communicate internally within the business to just drive that communication between management and staff. You could use your podcast to do this. So that's 5 reasons. We started out with 4, but it's actually 5 reasons. So if you want to, now you're probably wondering and thinking, how then do I go about generating content for my podcast? How do I go about recording that podcast? How do I go about distributing that podcast and building my audience? Well, that's where I come in. So if you want to talk about this a little bit more, you want to learn a little bit more about how you can position yourself through your business's podcast, then please just drop me an email on Tawanda@Cover Creative. That's Tawanda@Cover Creative, KAVAR creative.com. Tawanda@Covercreative.com, or you can leave a comment in the comments below, and I'll definitely be able to get back to you as soon as possible. I hope you enjoyed this chat. So from now, it's goodbye until next time. You take care of yourselves.